don't let the left kid you with this, that this is just a normal protest where people are peacefully protesting. No, it's not. Peaceful protesters don't have 9mm weapons with 2 extra magazines.
I think what frustrates people, you remember Kyle Rittenhouse and how he was made a hero on the right. I am sure there are people on the conservative side who are saying, wait a minute, you mean you can't take a firearm to a protest?
He was viewing and recording the incident. That's what he was doing, recording the incident.
As the Trump administration responded to another deadly ICE shooting in the way that, well, they always do: deny, smear, escalate, and repeat.
House has labeled the man who was killed in Minnesota as a domestic terrorist. Is that something you agree with? And have you seen any evidence to
when
back
you
up that?
perpetuate violence against a government because of ideological reasons and for reasons to resist and perpetuate violence, that is the definition of domestic terrorism. This individual who came with weapons and ammunition to stop a law enforcement operation of federal law enforcement officers committed an act of domestic terrorism.
But only this time, the pushback isn't coming from just Democrats. It's coming from Fox News.
Was he not asking for some kind of trouble in that situation?
No, I really don't think so, John. Look, I've been on this channel on numerous occasions where we talk about the Second Amendment and the right to carry firearms. And I've known people to go to demonstrations before in the past and to have firearms with them. He didn't do anything with that firearm. That man is dead. And there's a question mark as to whether he should have been killed under these circumstances.
After the fatal shooting of Alex Pretti, the Trump administration and Department of Homeland Security allies moved fast to frame him as a violent threat, with administration official and easily top 5 worst people on the planet right now, Stephen Miller, calling him a would-be assassin. Yeah, the man brandishing the phone trying to help the woman ICE had pushed to the floor. And even this seemed a bit extreme for Trump himself, considering he sent out his chief propagandist, Caroline Leavitt, to downplay his response compared to his yes men.
Mary. Thanks, Caroline. To follow on Gabe's question, Secretary Noem said Alex Pretti committed an act of domestic terrorism. Stephen Miller labeled Pretti a domestic terrorist. Does the president agree with them?
Look, as I've said, I have not heard the president characterize Mr. Pretti in that way. However, I have heard the president say he wants to let the facts in the investigation lead itself.
Was he alarmed to hear his top officials referring to him in that way, rushing to that judge?
Danny, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. On Stephen Miller's comments, will Stephen Miller be apologizing to the family of Alex Pretti for calling him, quotes, an assassin who tried to murder federal agents, despite the fact that, as you say, this is still under investigation?
Look, again, this incident remains under investigation, and nobody here at the White House, including the President of the United States, wants to see Americans hurt or killed and losing their lives in American streets. And we mourn for the parents. As a mother myself, of course, I cannot imagine the loss of life, especially losing one's child. And that same empathy from the president goes for the parents of angel families, and parents of victims of illegal alien crime across our country as well. And that's exactly why the president continues to be wholeheartedly committed to deporting the worst of the worst criminals from our country.
But see, the problem for Trump is that the narrative is already unraveling. Take, for instance, this from Fox host Trey Gowdy, who pushed back directly against the Trump administration's portrayal of Pretti as a, quote, domestic terrorist who was going to execute cops, for then discussing the clear as day hypocrisy with the fact that the right wing worshipped Kyle Rittenhouse, who showed up to protest with a weapon.
And I think what frustrates people, you remember Kyle Rittenhouse and how he was made a hero on the right. I am sure there are people on the conservative side who are saying, wait a minute, you mean you can't take a firearm to a protest because you were just celebrating the guy for doing it a couple of years ago? Alex Pretti's firearm was lawfully being carried. It's lawful to carry a gun in Minnesota. He never brandished it. He didn't point it at the cops.
And the thing is, this flies in the face of the Trump administration's excuse, where they often paint any sort of pushback as coming from left-wing agitators or Democrats. It's coming from within the Republican Party here. This is coming from inside Trump's favorite media ecosystem. And when that happens, Trump loses what he depends on most during a crisis: propaganda.
Another individual is dead at the hands of Border Patrol. Let's be clear. We do not know if there was any pushback from this individual who was armed. We do not have evidence that he was waving a gun, doing anything to threaten Border Patrol. He had his phone and he was shooting. He was viewing and recording the incident. That's what he was doing, recording the incident. What is your reaction? And you are an elected official. What can you do about it?
Well, look, I don't think there's any question a majority of Americans want President Trump and ICE to go in and apprehend the criminal illegals. That's what President Trump campaigned on, and he's doing exactly what he said. I look at what happened in Minneapolis versus what happened in Washington, D.C. When President Trump sent the National Guard into Washington, D.C., the Mayor Muriel Bowser, supported that. She worked, her local law enforcement worked with the president, and in a short period of time, they have really been successful in reducing the amount of crime in Washington, D.C. That was a big success. Fast forward to where we are in Minneapolis. We have a governor, an attorney general, and a mayor of Minneapolis who are getting people jacked up, trying to get them, convinced that this is, some type of illegal raid, that all their lives are threatened, and they've got all these white liberals coming in, trying to run over ICE, trying to, spray them and do everything to disrupt.
Deadly incidents like this, paired with inflated rhetorical labels, create the exact opposite impression of what Trump has been selling with the amount of ICE agencies sending, trying to restore law and order. But it's nothing but chaos, to the point that law enforcement officers across the country are directly calling out ICE's tactics and how they are escalating situations.
Recently, as the last 2 weeks, we as law enforcement community have been receiving endless complaints about civil rights violations in our streets from U.S. citizens. What we're hearing is they're being stopped in traffic stops or on the street with no cause and being forced to demand paperwork to determine if they are here legally. As this went on over the past 2 weeks, we started hearing from our police officers the same complaints as they fell victim to this while off duty. Every one of these individuals is a person of color who has had this happen to them. In Brooklyn Park, one particular officer that shared her story with me was stopped as she passed ICE going down the roadway. When they boxed her in, they demanded her paperwork, of which she's a U.S. citizen and clearly would not have any paperwork. When she became concerned about the rhetoric and the way she was being treated, she pulled out her phone. In an attempt to record the incident, the phone was knocked out of her hands, prevented her from recording it. The officer had their guns drawn during this interaction. If it is happening to our officers, it pains me to think of how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day. It has to stop.
And when Fox hosts start doing what Gowdy did here, asking for evidence, questioning labels, refusing to parrot the most extreme framing, the whole propaganda machine breaks down.
We've all seen the 3-minute video. And I've heard some people say, oh, it's hard to watch. What was hard is that there were 5 to 7 ICE agents there. In my world, my colleagues, we've arrested some dangerous people on the back roads of Cumberland County with 3 or less deputies. Yet, this was a show of force, a show of whatever they were trying to do with 7 people.
Brian, 82% of people saw that video. 53% think that he should be criminally charged for it. And then the Wall Street Journal comes out and they're reporting that there are incentives for ICE agents because they need to meet that insane 3,000 people a day quota, that they're getting rewarded even if they bring in people who then get released. These stories of Americans being detained saying, show me your papers. There was a veteran, U.S. veteran who's on a Carnival cruise, being arrested a U.S. veteran on a Carnival cruise with his wife who was taken out of his cabin, someone who served this country.
What is the percentage? No percentage.
Citizen. Do not act like ICE isn't making, I don't even know how many mistakes a day in pursuit of Stephen Miller's 3,000 a day quota. and getting paid
Let's
for
give
it.
Greg a chance.
And what happens is those watching Fox News might wake up to the fact that they are being lied to.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.